Good.
Kicked him out cause he couldn't pay the rent. Plugging in the alley with the money that he spent. Daddy's got a girlfriend but she's not putting out. He listens to the grins and chicks until he passes out. The daddy is a work because he is a work. The daddy is a work because he is a work. The daddy is a work because he is a work. The daddy is a work because he is a work.
We are now on Chapter 12, Book 2, getting near the end of Book 2. And we shall now begin. So here we are. Like I've said, Chapter 12, Book 2, on my own today. So, the bass player from the Boys from Wyoming opens the door to the club. He's going in to relieve the singer and guitarist from the Boys from Wyoming of his merch duties. That's, of course, Cody and Corey, the bass player. The paradoxically antisocial singer will, like always, resist leaving the merch table, but will then finally give in to his hunger for fast food. You lean against the brick wall next to the door and watch the kids enter the club. It is raining, but you don't mind the rain. There's something depressing yet liberating about getting soaked. It emphasizes the uncomfortable fact of being caught in a body that is resilient yet submissive to the forces that rule over mortality. It doesn't sound liberating, but it gives one a sorrowful existential joy, like the feeling of relief after you stop banging your own head against a cement curb. The girl in wet denim walks over and crouches down beside you. The water droplets on her hair fall from the matted follicles and crash onto your shins and shoes. She smiles, and this simple action warms your heart, as if being reacquainted with an imaginary friend from childhood that mysteriously disappeared one day, leaving you forlorn. Oh, wow, I didn't know I put that. That's actually true. I often tell a weird story. I was actually the first girlfriend I had, quote unquote, my hands are too busy to do the air quotes, was when I was very young. You know, we didn't have sex, we just kissed and stuff. I don't know, I was like maybe 9 or 10, I think. And then I met her through my dad, because I would stay with my dad and she would be there. I guess my dad was dating her mother, and they ended up getting married. So I ended up dating my stepsister. But anyway, one day my dad came home and they were gone. Like furniture, everyone was gone. The 2 kids, and Karen was the mother's name. So I always think about that idea of, and that's why I think I put this here. Except I said, with an imaginary friend from child that mysteriously disappeared one day, leaving you forlorn. So I sort of buried into that idea of, you know, having imaginary friends that eventually, when we become, introduced to reality, we sort of leave those imaginary friends behind. But I definitely was referencing my first girlfriend, quote unquote. So anyway, so back to the story. So the girl in this story says, "You're JJ Budbag." What'd I say? Budbag? That's another good name. Budbag, but it's actually Bedbug. "You're JJ Bedbug. I recognized you from the back of one of the semi-famous records. I never got to see you live. I was too young." This is true. The last time the band toured more than 6 years ago, she was probably only 11 to 13 years old. This is one of the reasons the legend of the band has been magnified. Most of the fans have never been able to see the band live. Well, now they have, because of been reforming, but they haven't seen it with me or Vapid or Panic, more than likely. The thought of semi-famous performing live has become bigger than life, and this is one of the many reasons Franklin Famous fears returning to the road. Even though he likes the idea of the money that can be made, there's no competing with this otherworldly legendary status. There's only room to disappoint. This view is not shared by all the band members, but it does linger in part of the brains that manufacturers doubt. Even though during these days financial support is desperately needed, it still is not a good enough reason for Franklin to put away his large list of doubts and his somewhat obsessive need to move on from the past. But the possibility of a one-off show in the near future is not ruled out. Franklin has a stubborn yet capricious logic, and chances are a reason will flash through his brain, get back on stage, and if the timing is right, it may happen. Damn, I was so brutally honest in this book. Back when I was writing this, we were still talking a lot. So I think he realized a lot of my thoughts in this book from this book. This girl in denim may have the opportunity to compare her idea of the legend with the reality of the aging talents. You actually think you are better than you used to be. These shows with the boys from Wyoming have shown you that your live performance has improved. Sometime during the long, semi-famous hiatuses, you have actually learned how to play that guitar competently. My friend's father saw that last show of yours in Wisconsin back in '93. He's a punk from the old days. She points over toward the kid that was walking down the street with her just a little while ago. His concert shirt is soaked through to his freckle and acne-coated skin. He stares over at the two of you. 93, you say to her. I guess that's a long time ago. To you. Mid-1993, Semi-Famous would embark on their last tour before becoming a non-live performing studio band. The Flaming Faggots joined on the bill, and their fame increased, and steady income grew slowly thereafter. Something hard to describe happened on that tour. It can't be said that the band had outlived its relevance. The relevance had just been realized. There really wasn't much jealousy in the band, but friendship was on the decay. Maybe there wasn't any real friendship to keep from communal decaying. Semi-Famous was losing steam right when pop-punk started its minor invasion into the mainstream. It would still be a while before BC Pills conquered the radio world, but the progression had been set in motion. Semi-Famous would release one more record before the aforementioned second and most final of the breakups. 2, almost 3 years, the band would stay inactive and then resurface for one more big underground release. The second largest selling record, Out Come the Chihuahuas. Oh, that's funny, because that was actually going to be the original name, was Out Come the Chihuahuas, which was Ben making fun of the Rancid Boys. But he changed his mind, and then we called it Bark Like a Dog. But it still has Chihuahuas on the cover to sort of reference that idea. Bark Like a Dog is a quote from one of Ben's favorite movies, Caddyshack, which is also sort of referenced on the record by it. I think it actually is on a golf course, even though in the picture we're in a graveyard. That was my idea. Then the band would instantly self-destruct again, losing 2 of its widely perceived core members who had previously left for good, but because of the oddness of their quick reunion into the derivatives Muddle and Dread, were now back again for one record and yet another breakup. So once again, for all of you who are listening and keeping track of the band, that is the classic lineup. Once again, air quotes, because my hands are busy. Which is Panic, Vapid, me, and Ben. So we're talking about that time period where Vapid left for after Anthem for New Tomorrow, and then we called in Mike Dirnt from Green Day to be on How to Make Enemies, and then we disbanded, and then the Riverdale started, and then Riverdale sort of imploded, and then we got Weasel back together for Bark Like a Dog. There it is. This all happened right when punk bands were getting signed to potential $1 million contracts. Semi-Famous turned down one of these contracts and were never again offered the opportunity. And yet the band held its ground and still had a consistently growing audience base. Ironically, the band grew in fame more after it stopped touring. Mr. Famous and you referred to the band during these times as a punk rock anomaly. The only bands that you could think of besides Semi-Famous that could survive financially for more than 7 years while releasing well-received records without playing a single show are in an entirely different rock and roll genre than your little punk rock do-it-yourself outfit. Those types of bands are in the major league. Their fame, back catalogs, and mechanical royalties will sustain them for the rest of their lives, if they live wisely, and have top-notch, opportunistic, money-loving lawyers sitting on their shoulders peering down over their malleable contracts into the unequivocal, beady eyes of the victims and criminals. And then in parentheses here, mechanical royalties are the little financial surprises that come in the mail on what appears to be a random schedule. If a band has had a song on the mainstream radio, or in a movie, or every time that song is played, or the movie is shown in theaters, on cable, or just plain old television, a few cents, well now it's the internet because we didn't have the internet when I was writing this, or deposited into the pocket of one of the people who own the publishing, it is a thoroughly unpredictable income that undoubtedly has mafia connections or some mysterious evil equivalent. Semi-Famous receives small checks from anywhere between $5 and $75. That is with no mainstream airplay at all. $5 and $75. That is without no main... Oh, I'm just repeating that again. That is with no mainstream airplay at all. Just imagine the royalties BC Pills and Hoodwink 127. Hoodwink. Hoodwink 127. Obviously, that's Blink 182. I like that Hoodwink. They're on all radio stations and in every other teen flick. The girl in denim's friend wouldn't give you that funny, untrusting, jealous sneer. What? I gotta slow down. The girl in denim's friend wouldn't give you that funny, untrusting, jealous sneer of a look if you were in one of those bands. A watery hand falls straight down from the sky and smacks you on the forehead. You look down at the ground and cover your eyes. Yep, I am ridiculous. You look back up, and the girl in denim is gone. That's a short chapter. That's end of chapter 12.
I see you.
All right, gang, I'm going to give you two of them today since that was short. This is chapter 13, which leaves chapter 14, which is, from my recollection, is a pretty odd, strange chapter. So I will get through chapter 13 and leave 14 for another day. So here we are, chapter 13, book 2. A minuscule area beside Bakersfield, California. Oh, Bakersfield. Oh, yes. Oh, I know this story. Okay, here we go. A minuscule area beside Bakersfield, California is cradled in the distance by two mountains posing as hills. The area is oh so tiny with a very small town on top. This area with town on top in the distance takes large baby steps closer to the van and contradicts the laws of perception by shrinking smaller and smaller the closer it gets. By the time the van pulls up to the venue du jour, the venue, incredibly tiny even in comparisons to its womb-like town, is already on its shrinking way up closer to the van. If the van accidentally inched past this minuscule area, the town, with venue tucked neatly inside, would quickly turn into a point of light before disappearing forever. The venue's parking lot can fit into a small one-room studio without a kitchen or bath. Parentheses. This, in retrospect, seems absurd because the semi-famous van could not even fit in a small one-room studio with kitchen and not including bath. Unparentheses. You step out of the van and are now stepping directly onto the doormat placed at the venue's threshold next to the wooden-paneled bar that stretches from one side of the room and disappears around a corner few feet away. Hello, boys. There is a model, a brunette babe, serving drinks from behind the bar. She is beautiful in all the cosmopolitan ways, slender figure, long, plump lips, and a touch of tomboy in the way she moves and articulates her local colloquialisms. Her hello is friendly and sincere, but something in the way she says it implies, I'm only here temporarily, I'm on to bigger and better things. There's no specific poster displayed on the walls advertising the show, always a bad omen, but there's a dry erase calendar with the name Semi-Famous and the Flaming Faggots in small handwritten print under the Fuzzy Navel Drink Special. Bug, You did send them an agreement, didn't you? Yes, I did, Mr. Famous. And you got it back signed? Yes. The pre-show group of kids that hang out at venues no matter who is playing are not even there. There does appear to be a good sound system, and the promoter did post a band schedule calendar, so there isn't any direct danger of the agreement being broken. But the doomed feeling of this venue does bring the band pretty close to spontaneously making up a bad vibe clause as an addendum to the agreement. The night takes on the quality of a necessary failure of a show to get from San Francisco to L.A. This happens even with the new semi-fame the band has acquired. There's no mass media advertising, so these towns still haven't a clue about the band, or even the style. Nothing is expected and no surprises are in store. The outside goal is to make enough cash to pay for the fuel needed to get to the newly bought fourth-hand gas-guzzling van from here to there. Oh, that's it. Let me say that again. Nothing is expected and no surprises are in store. The outside goal is to make enough cash to pay for the fuel needed to get the newly bought fourth-hand gas-guzzling van from here to there. Damn, some of these sentences, John. What are you doing? See, look at me. I'm talking about myself. I'm talking to myself in a book about me talking to myself. It cracked me up. Okay. The plans are to leave right after the show, avoiding the cost of a motel and getting Mr. Famous and Mr. Faggot. I like that together. I wonder if that's why I did that. I like that, Famous and Faggot. Mr. Famous and Mr. Faggot out of this type of vulture-like town that pecks at their anxieties while dark mountains in the distance mock their pain. The two bands will get to the next venue in L.A. 6 hours early and sleep in the van, or just not sleep at all, and sit in a Denny's or a donut shop, ordering the least amount of food and drink it will take to not get kicked out. While the bands wait the few hours for the 7 or so punks to find the venue and pay the doorman to get in, you all sit at the bar chatting with Becky, the cosmopolitan model on her way to better things. She is an actress who likes to take weekend trips to L.A. to suntan on the beach and occasionally audition for bit parts. You like Becky. Of course all the boys like Becky, but you have an in. You can talk theater shop, quote unquote. Air quotes. You have been writing and performing in plays even before you began performing on stage with the band. Later you'll look back and realize that for every album you recorded, you also have a play you have written, an exact numerical match. That was true. That lasted for about, I think, up to 12 records, and then 12 plays. And now they're still about equal, but they weren't like one for one. I think I'm on, something from like 26 to 30 records, and I've done way more than that in plays. Anyway, so fuck headshots and resumes. I'm just going to go to the beach every weekend flaunting my charms and waiting for some greasy slimeball producer who wants to take off my panties. I'll charm him and bleed him for all he's worth. It's a dangerous game Becky wants to play, but she seems tough. She'll probably get away with it. She does not have any acting training, but that doesn't really mean much anyway. That shouldn't matter, Becky. Most stars just take acting lessons after they become famous. It somehow adds credibility to their fame. You have no idea if this is true. It sounded like a good thing to say. The chat continues on until it is time to set up the amps and instruments. The conversation with her was going rather well. The band plays its lackluster set in front of a handful of punks. Becky watches the band out of the corner of her eye while serving the musically indifferent and or oblivious barflies her usual forms of alcohol. She doesn't seem too engrossed in the performance. This is nothing out of the ordinary. These bartenders see an endless slew of punk, country, metal, rock bands come through town every night. Most do not even care for the musical form of the night. You know what is funny is that this still bothers me to this day. Screeching Weasel did so well, but this was always the reaction of the soundmen and bartenders, which is, and this is not tooting my own horn, but even in Blackouts, I don't think we've ever done a show where a bartender or a soundman hasn't come up and congratulated us on doing something different and interesting, and that they were actually listening. But in general, whenever I played with other bands, the bartenders and the soundmen could barely give a toot. In regard to this new punk, many are mildly curious, but ultimately just consider this rough, edgy punk as fuck sound, attitude, and style an inconsequential passing phase. Becky finds the music cute. Yes, she said cute. Who could imagine that the adoption and cultivating of this odd perception known as cute would later dominate and sterilize the entire pop-punk movement? Punk bands become a replacement for a teenager's little furry cuddly toy. The only 13-year-olds showing up to punk concerts in the 80s and early 90s were runaways trying to find somewhere to sleep or someone to feed them some beer for money or sex. There were no 13-year-olds wearing mommy's glitter makeup, store-bought pre-torn shirts and plaid school girl skirts and high heels with live fish. They stand huddled together in groups of 4 or 5, occasionally pointing out cute anorexic punk boys with mousse and Elmer's glue pointed spikes. Then they call their dads on the cell phone to pick them up. It is not worthy of criticism. It is just that, to you, pop-punk has become odd and slightly discomforting. This really has nothing to do with what or where you are now while standing on stage glancing over at Becky. Anyway, the semi-famous and the flaming faggot performances are uneventful. There's no memory of 1 second of fascinating or distinctive stage time. Chances are Mr. Famous gets nude and insults someone, then almost cancels the show because a fight is about to break out. You break guitar strings, lose track of how to play a song because you are concentrating too much on performance, kissing and standing on skinheads and security guards. Muddle drinks 1 or 2 too many beers with the flaming faggots and gets yelled at by Franklin for fucking up the backing vocals, quote-unquote, air quotes. And Dredd jumps up and down and parades around his drums like a cartoon monkey boy. Then later corners somebody and mumbles their ear off about some personal minor tragedies and insignificant childhood woes he has to deal with endlessly until the hapless victim finally says, "You know what? I gotta go now." I feel bad about some of this writing, but I like I said, I wanted to do this book. I was offended by Ben's book on how unhonest, how not genuine it was, that he really just took it to being a complete fiction, and I went out of my way to be brutally honest, even if it was going to hurt people that I love. And I think Panic in some ways, I dwelled too much on the negative with Panic in this book, because I think like I said on the last chapter when my friend Jim was joining in, he was always the one I hung out with and had a lot of fun with. But I think I felt like I had to be overly honest and critical of all of us. So there it is. You look back at the active days in the bands as exciting. They were important to the development of your identity and thousands of fans' identities too. And yet, if you dig deeper in your memory, you'll recall that being with the band continually day after day often manifested uninspired patterns of the same old, same old. It takes a great amount of energy to perform differently every night, especially when an audience has never seen the band before. Why switch it up if the performance can improve itself by brushing up on surefire material used the last couple nights, or used every show so far? Once again, something that even in Blackouts does not do. Actually, Screeching Weasel didn't do that much either. Ben was pretty good at, he would react to whatever the hell was going on in the room, and I would do that too. But it did feel like it more, I think, with Weasel. Anyway, new paragraph. After the show, after packing up the equipment, you sit for a moment at the bar. Becky is hand-washing beer mugs like a seasoned professional, miraculously avoiding staining, smudging, or cracking her Cosmo tomboy manicure. "Do you have a place to stay tonight?" She doesn't ask if the band has a place to stay tonight. It could be implied that you, quote-unquote, air quotes, is all of you, quote-unquote, air quotes. That's not actually written. I just keep finding it funny to say that. Okay, but anyway. But the phrasing may be intentional, disguising your interest in an ambiguous question offering hospitality. The word "you" is often very confusing. Haha, that's a self-referential comment there. And then you hear from behind, "Bedbug, let's go." There is no reorganizing the plans to make more time to continue this flirtatious pitter-patter. The mind immediately rationalizes and tells you it's all for the best. We're not even staying in town tonight, Becky. Where are you playing tomorrow? East L.A. I'll be in L.A. tomorrow. Here, I'll give you my number where I stay when I'm there. She dries her hands on a bar towel, grabs a napkin and writing utensil, and prints her number quickly, confidently, with impeccably clear penmanship. You like her. She is pretty damn cool. It is something special and constantly shocking and reassuring when stereotypes are cracked away by an individual's personality and your own willingness to admit you don't know everything about everyone at first glance, although first impressions in the past have been correct and then later clouded with too much knowledge. That's actually pretty true about my girlfriend now of like almost 10 years. She is definitely not inside what she looks like outside, and it's pretty impressive. Anyway, she hands over the napkin and leans across the bar and gives you a kiss on the cheek. Contained within this moment, you contemplate a series of life-altering decisions. I will never leave her side. I will not marry her, but I will be her dog. I can't live here. I can't be a dog, nor a cat, nor any beast on 4 legs. I don't even know this woman named Becky. I despise California. Why the fuck is this going through my head? I gotta go. See you tomorrow night. Muddle stands by the exit. While walking up to him, there is a bewildered smile falling off the side of your face. The napkin is damp from your clutched fingers. Wow, he says, over-articulating the interjection, exaggerating the roundness of his mouth. What was that? His index finger swirls around in the air and lands in Becky's direction. Well, my friend, I'm not quite sure, but tomorrow night may promise to be a very memorable experience. Foreshadowing. Ironic foreshadowing, actually. You can smell the exhaust from the van whiffing its way into the club. The front window rolls down. Let's get out of this one-horse town. Franklin leans out of the passenger window and points his thumb at the sliding door on the side of the van. I mean it, you bozos. Let's get out before some pistol-slinging cowboy hog ties us to his pickup and steals our hard-earned cash. The promoter actually came up with a $300 guarantee. He lost money. Chances are he just wanted to see the band for himself and a few friends. This happens occasionally, but as long as they come through with the money, it works out okay. Sometimes the small shows are the most energetic because there's nothing to lose. But sadly, that kind of inspiration wasn't there for this show. The band is growing tired. Humor is rapidly decreasing in the van. It is being replaced by silence and snide remarks. The door slides open. Out pokes the head of Freddie Faggot. Don't put that fucking gas-spewing muddle next to me if he's gonna be farting all day. If he's gonna be farting all the way to Hollywood. Don't put that... I can't do a good Joe Queer, but... don't put that fucking gas-spewing muddle next to me if he's gonna be farting all... if he's gonna be farting all the way to Hollywood. Anyway. Muddle can joke with the best of them, and so he fits in well with Freddie and Franklin. He's not as witty, but he has the link to that juvenile collective unconscious that fills the high school halls and hidden smoking areas with vulgar insults like, go fart in a puddle, or get in closer and I'll rip off your head and shit down your throat. But Muddle gets quiet or appears not to be listening whenever his eating habits and propensity for gaseous outbursts are criticized. The intensity of close quarters has sharpened the wit and the cuts are beginning to bleed. The two of you climb in the back seat. You crawl into the loft and Muddle sits right next to Freddie. Aw, Muddle. Fucking figures. No microwave bean burrito stops tonight or I'll plug up your asshole with liquid cement. Shut up, Muddle cuddles with Freddie. Freddie shoves Muddle's head away from his shoulder and sniggers. Freddie has a trademark snigger. His nostrils flare, his upper lip raises, revealing 2 crooked front teeth. A subtle snore-like laugh coated in sarcasm echoes in his sinus cavities, and his eyes send out gelatinous daggers. The van leaves the parking lot, and the town immediately shrinks out of sight, never to be seen again. That's the end of chapter 13. All of this chapter is leading up to... I forgot that it's not in this chapter. I actually end book 2 with it. It is. I'm pretty sure it's us in Los Angeles where we actually didn't play. We were supposed to. It was a big deal for quite a while that Los Angeles was one of the few big cities in the country that Screeching Weasel hadn't played. To this day, I still have never played Los Angeles with Screeching Weasel. So that's it. End of chapter 13, book 2. Thank you. Goodbye.
Let's do the Weasel Whip, because he is a whip. Let's do the Weasel Whip, because he is a whip. Let's do the Weasel Whip, because he is a whip. Let's do the Weasel Whip, because he is a whip. Well, who was a bass player and then he quit the band? He said he had to go somewhere, but he had no plan. So Kudo went to New York, he said he had to go. He asked me what's a groovy, he certainly should know. That Kudo has a girlfriend, he said they really like the ball. He can't stand her guts 'cause she won't drink, but what is doing?